like to discuss it, or I'll be glad to read it again for folks. David.
Is it possible to talk about the change orders for the temporary fire station so we know what those are first before we talk about approving the policy?
I think we can talk about that when we talk about the temporary fire station budget, but this line item is just the policy. I mean, this is a policy going forward, not just for the temporary, but the full build out of the full fire station, and how it's going to be managed and manage these minor changes that come through. Go ahead, Jane.
I would like to propose that we move this to the end of the meeting and get the other information before we vote on this.
Sure, can do that. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion to move this item and take it out of order at the end of the meeting. How do you vote, Mayor? Can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
You did.
Both Neil and I have to be at a meeting at 5:30, so it necessitates this meeting going. I have no problem with moving it to the end, but let's just try to keep track of time so that we can be present for a vote, for a discussion and a vote. Any questions?
Okay. So you support the move?
I do, yes.
All right, I vote yes. Jean?
Yes.
Yes. David?
Yes.
What else do I have? Steve?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
And Liz?
Yes, but I also will be at that 5:30 meeting, so.
Right. Who else? Am I missing anybody here? I think so. Okay. All right, we'll move it to the end of the meeting. The next item on the agenda is the budget for the temporary fire station, and I'll turn that over to Neil.
Thanks, Butch.
Can I interrupt, Butch? I just want, for the record, I'm here.
Oh, apologize
for being late. A little busy this afternoon with
okay.
calls.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, Neil.
Thanks, Butch. Previously distributed to each of the committee members through the mayor's office was our first pass at an overall project budget, explaining and I hope accurately forecasting the expenditure of the $17 million that's been allocated by City Council for this project. Tried to divide it into the major categories of work in terms of our own fee, owner's project management fees, architect and engineering fees, commissioning services, which have yet to be discussed with the committee, but we've budgeted that line item. The construction of the permanent station, as well as what we call miscellaneous project expenses, things like testing, utility charges, etc. Furniture and equipment that goes into the permanent station. And then lastly, site acquisition, temporary fire station, and owner's contingency. So those items sum total to $17 million. We can talk in greater detail of the breakdown of those items. I'll open it up to questions relative to that. I'm sorry.
Are you able to share that on the screen so that other people can see it, please?
Let me see.
I just tried, and either I'm incompetent at it or it didn't work. It's going to be either or both.
Can you folks see that?
Yep,
Yes.
Yeah,
Does that, I can't see it, but does that total to the $17 million?
It,
Yes.
yes,
it
no,
needs
it-
to, it does need to be expanded there. Yeah, I'm sorry. You have to you need to scroll up.
Yeah, trying to figure out how to zoom out.
Yeah, and scroll up.
That's the top of the page, right there.
right side of the
Now
screen, second.
you're fine. Yeah. But you are gonna have to scroll no matter what, so.
Hold on, just widen these columns so you guys can see all the numbers. Gotta go a little smaller, I guess, huh?
Well, it's small right now.
I know, I'm trying to make it so you can see the whole page.
Oh, I don't know if you're gonna be able to do that.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it as is. We can scroll up and down.
Yeah, somehow I lost the whole here. Happened to me. I think
You do have the Zoom
there it
feature
goes.
at the top. You have the Zoom icons up at the top.
What are you asking me to do, Mayor? Make it bigger?
Right where you are, if you did 100%, what happens if you do 100%?
It'll only show you
Next
half
to
of the
that.
page. You wanna do
Okay.
that? I can make
I
it
don't,
I can make it as big as you want. We just lose the bottom of the page,
okay, you just have to scroll.
okay?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that-
easier for.
Want me to make it bigger?
I don't, no, it's fine for me. I don't know about others.
Whoop, that's too big. Hold on.
That's not bad.
Yeah, that's pretty
Okay.
good.
Is that all right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fine.
just
Okay.
scroll. Sorry, I interrupted. I think you asked if there were questions.
OPM fee, architecture and engineering, commissioning services, production budget for the whole station, miscellaneous project expenses, furniture and equipment, temporary substation, including site acquisition for the permanent, and owner's contingency. Again, summing to the 17 million.
Okay. David has a question.
Neil, I think you were gonna get to this anyway. Can you basically, I know because we're on the subject of change orders, can you simply explain the 3 change orders that we've had, what the cost of those change orders were? I think that will help out, with respect to us voting on a change order policy.
Yeah, can I stop sharing the screen?
If you need to, do whatever you need to do.
Would help me.
Are you sharing something else with us?
I wasn't planning to.
Okay.
So we asked the city and received authorization to proceed with 3 change orders related to the project, 2 of which were related to the fire suppression sprinklers inside the apparatus bay. And the third was related to electrical revisions inside of apparatus bay 2. In greater detail, the original concept for the apparatus bays did not include sprinklers as part of the scope of the contract. After review with the building officials, with the fire chief, members of the design team, and consideration of different interpretations of the building code it was determined that it was in the best interests of the project to add the sprinklers. So we added the sprinklers. The secondary impact to that was twofold. One, we had to go back and sort of reverse engineer the supports for the apparatus bays to ensure that they could physically support the dynamic and dead load of the sprinkler system within the structure. And we had to engineer and provide a series of hangers to support the sprinkler system in place. And the change associated with that effort was $23,406. Secondary to that was redesigning the sprinkler system. The redesign of the sprinkler system was required because the best way and the most inexpensive way to support the sprinkler system was to hang them directly from the arches, as opposed to running them across the ceiling in the north-south direction. That required us to increase the pipe size, as well as engineer some intermediate supports. So the impact to the sprinkler system was $16,430. And then lastly, the requirement to wash the fire trucks inside of the electrical bays became a subject of discussion with the city's code officials, and they suggested it would be in the best interests to include a revised electrical distribution system due to the water and the damp environment inside of the structures. And the associated scope of work for that was $25,645. So the three change orders in total are $65,482, and they represent just over 3.25% of the total $2 million budget.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Steve.
So does this mean, a change order is to a construction price. Now I don't know what that construction price is, and it's not on our spreadsheet. We have a $2 million budget. What is the construction price that we are doing a change order to? Is this 2 million plus 65,000?
No, the 2 million is inclusive of the 65,000. And Steve, the $2 million is a summation of both the cost of the acquisition and lease of the temporary buildings,
Yeah.
as well as the labor, materials, and equipment that have been both performed by the city in-house, as well as outsourced through outside contractors. So that is the summation of all of the independent moving parts associated with the temporary fire station.
So this is is a change order to the construction. Is there a general contractor, or is just a sum of different parts?
Because it's really, the city is really acting as the general contractor, and it's a sum of all of the moving parts.
I understand that. So this is just a change to the sprinkler guy and a change to the electrical contractor, but not the city electrical contractor.
That's correct.
The building electrical contractor.
Yes.
Okay. And somewhere else we have on a much more detailed sheet, we have all of those things that add up to $2 million.
Yes.
Okay. Is that something we could just as a committee have? We don't need to have it now or whatever, but I'm just sort of.
We're
I
not
don't
adding
want to see it.
anything.
I don't want to see it now, but I'm just wondering if there's, so there's, I mean, and the assumption is also is that somebody drew up these drawings, and I know he's right in front of me right now. So I assume that part of his, because that's really an extra cost for the architect to do the design for the temporary, and that's not really detailed either in his line items. Is there, but I assume that we do have that, right? We have that broken down as well. So the cost for the architect and the engineers.
Yes, you do, Steve. This is Dennis. That is in the first line item, schematic design.
Yeah.
So our consultants and ourselves for the temporary and everything involved in that is in that 344,250 number.
So, okay, that's fine. And somewhere there's a breakdown of all that, and I'm fine. I don't need to know that. Is the redesign of the sprinkler system by the engineers or by the subcontractor?
It was by the subcontractor. They have a responsibility to provide a code compliant design as part of their scope of services.
Okay. That's fine. That's my questions.
Anyone else with a
Just
quick question? Sure, David.
Just a statement, so we're all clear. So the $65,000, we went way back when we formed a budget for the temporary fire station. There was definitely some unknowns because we had systems that we weren't able to fully price. But I want to make it clear that we're on budget and we're on track. And the $65,000 that we had to spend because of code regulations is included in our overall budget. Correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think Jean had a question.
Go ahead, Jean.
I am confused about what a change order is. I thought that you had contracts with contractors and that if you went to the contractor during the period of their executing that contract, you changed something in the contract that they didn't recommend, that was a change order and you paid extra for that. I don't understand why we have to vote for change orders for the permanent fire station when we don't even have a contract with anybody. And I don't understand why $65,482 could not have been discussed with the committee at some point. This is not something that just popped up yesterday, like moving a plug, as the mayor used for an example last week, that was what she was trying to accomplish with change orders. I guess I don't understand what the definition of a change order is, because $65,000 sounds like a lot of money to me.
Yes, Mayor.
Oh, I was just going to explain, we're not voting on the change orders tonight. You're voting on the policy going for how to handle change orders. The three change orders that you're talking about occurred contemporaneously with the understanding of what was required. So we had code requirements that we didn't realize we had. And then the subsequent handling of those code requirements caused the change orders, which were needed to be dealt with at the time that they occurred prior to us having this policy. To further explain why the policy coming before you today is because obviously we realize that we need to have a change order policy, not just for the permanent, which so obviously we haven't started yet, and I can give an update on that later, but we haven't started the permanent, but we have very much started the temporary, as you know. In fact, we are a little past finishing it. So quite a bit past finishing it. So that's why those came about. And because it was asked by this committee, I think you, Jean, last week, that we began to see the budgets, which I think is a very good thing. Neil incorporated them in, and he's giving you the explanation now of those change orders that have already been approved. That will not, I mean, this policy in place tonight that we hopefully vote on this evening will set the process, the procedures for change orders. And obviously, baked into that process will be a list of change orders as they accumulate, so that we can have them for one or both of the two meetings that we have a month.
And I would just ask, maybe Dennis, I don't know why I'm double talking here. If you could maybe answer Jean's question, the kinds of things that could come up during the course of a large capital project.
Now,
Sure.
my example was a very simple example. It was not meant to be the example.
Yeah, no, that's great. Gene, there's a lot of things that can cause a change order. So first, let's deal with what actually caused the change orders in the temporary as a perfect example. All right, many of the codes that we deal with are interpretive. All right, and when we interpret them, and I'm going to use the sprinkler system as an example, it can be interpreted by us and by the code official differently. We took the interpretation that it wasn't necessary, which was a correct interpretation on the smaller building and could have been a correct interpretation on the larger of the temporaries. However, the code official chose to take a little bit more of a restrictive stance. We understood it, and there's a perfect legitimate change order involved because the local code official has the final interpretation. So that's one example of how a change order can come about. Certainly on a larger project, and we're going to do everything we can to mitigate it, but we could find something in the ground. Let's say, a little pocket of lousy soils, or a rock that was never picked up on, a boulder or something like that. As the project goes on and the chief and his folks actually tour the building and can actually start walking within the building, they might say, we thought on the plans this was a great place for a door. It's already installed, but it makes more sense over here. Something like a change like that would certainly be a change order. The unavailability of certain materials where we may have to upgrade or downgrade, but still get the performance of the material. All right. Not all change orders are plus. You could have a plus or a minus. Maybe the chief is walking through the building saying, we don't need that, whatever that is. And that change order would then be a credit back to the city. So they come in both directions. And, the contingency that Neil has built in for the entire project, yes, that's an entire project contingency. But as we get closer and closer to an actual design of the permanent facility, there will be a city's contingency just for that construction. Does that help answer your question?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I thought that the job of the architect was to do the research to find out what is acceptable in the venue in which they're building. And I understand that this temporary fire station is perhaps not a typical thing that an architect would have to do. But if we're going to build the permanent fire station this way, where there are going to be many changes, I don't understand what we're paying you. I mean, we paid you $535,000 for this design. I don't understand why we wouldn't expect more perfection from the design process than having these $65,000 change orders because you didn't realize that the person inspecting it on site would have different standards than you were used to.
Basically, let's talk about the temporary and then we'll go into the permanent.
And I
On
understand the fact that this $65,000 was a necessary expenditure, and I'm perfectly prepared to vote for it. I am questioning why we would authorize this type of thing on the permanent fire station and why we would vote for that tonight.
All right, so the reason change orders exist is because any building design whatsoever is a one-off. It's never been done before, all right? There are thousands of materials, hundreds of connections, very complex systems and infrastructure with thousands of points of interference. I would love to tell you I could get that exactly correct, but not me, not anybody, not any architect or engineer in the world can do that. This is not like a GM automobile that goes and gets built 100, 200, 300 times, gets crashed, gets refined, gets crashed, gets pulled apart, crashed, photographed. No, this is a one-shot deal with thousands and thousands of connections, materials, points of interference, et cetera, et cetera. I would love to tell you we could get it perfect. There's not a chance in the world that can happen. Therefore, change orders and not so much change orders, but contingency. Contingency is there to pay for the inevitable because not everybody can get it all exactly right. We do the best we can. I can tell you that in 25 years, our standard change order contingency, if you will, on a project is less than 1%. I can also tell you that the national average is 5%, right? So we take great pride in keeping that number down, but again, we're not perfect and we don't try to normally tell you we are.
I accept that and I understand that, and I have built many houses and I've gone through the process and I went to the construction meetings on the senior center every week. So I understand what's involved. I am asking you if you ordinarily require change order policy voted before you even design the project.
Yes.
As the architect, we don't actually incur that policy, but on a project like a municipal project like this, having the policy in place, I think is a good thing because it tells everybody, if a change order comes up, which at some point one will, you already have a policy in place on how to handle it, based on, what's the monetary value, what's the process it wants to go through. It's just a matter of setting a process up. And I think that's a very, very good and very professional thing for the city to do.
Butch, just to add to that, I would suggest that on every project that we do, we put a similar policy in place to make sure that we can move construction along in an expeditious manner and make decisions that are needed really on a day-to-day basis when construction starts. And this project is a little different in that we have to sort of do obviously do the temporary station before we really get into the permanent station. But I think the request and the policy and the procedure is an appropriate discussion.
I just wanted to interject if I could to put a little perspective on this. At the library building committee last couple of weeks ago, whatever the last meeting was, the question was asked how, I think it was actually asked by Fern Smith, What do you anticipate the overall dollar amount for change orders would be? Now, this is on the permanent construction of the library, so we haven't gotten there yet for the obviously for the fire station. But his answer was typically around $160,000. So that's not a small amount of money. That doesn't represent one single change order. It represents an accumulation of change orders. I would like to think we're nearing the end of the temporary station, and putting it into perspective, $65,000 for things that we did not anticipate fully, based on code inspectors, which are always going to be with us, is not it's a sizable amount when you consider the budget for the temporary, but it is not a budget breaker, as David said, by any means.
David? Yes, David.
Just a couple comments. I totally agree with Neil. I think that if we had a change order policy in place, we might not be talking about these 3 change orders that maybe we all didn't know about on a timely manner. The policy will allow us to see the log and ask for the log and make sure we see the log every week on change orders. So maybe that mistake could have been corrected. I also think that so that's really all I had to say is I think the change order is a good policy for the committee to be able to keep track and ask the questions when they come up in a timely manner.
Anybody else? Steve?
Couple of comments. As far as code interpretation, you know, the local inspector is the authority having jurisdiction, and you can, if you don't agree with the inspector, you can go to Boston and try there, which isn't usually helpful if you're in a hurry. So I totally understand that. I also will say, and I won't say that Dennis did this, but I will admit that I've done it, is that sometimes if there is a fuzzy code interpretation in your mind and you're saying, well, we could put this into the documents and we know it's going to cost us $65,000 more, or we think that it's a reasonable approach not to put it in there, and you just put it out there to see what he has to say. I mean, if you put it in, if you ask him, he's going to say, oh yeah, I want it, absolutely. So there's always a little bit of a game to be played. Secondly, I believe we will have change orders. I mean, it's a crazy market out there right now. I mean, just the material, who knows what kind of material you're going to get when you need it. We could change 3 times on stuff by the time when we bid it to when it's ready to be installed. It's really kind of nuts. And third comment is that I guess that as David said, I felt blindsided last time with this, like, we never heard about change orders, and then all of a sudden we're asked to do this policy that says we don't take any responsibility for reviewing change orders. And number one, having been on the other side of the table, I don't think that the building committee should be weighing in on change orders, because it would just slow things way down. But maybe as part of our policy, we could have something that says that, you know, I mean, I don't know if there's construction meetings for the temporary, if it's too small of a project to have actual weekly construction meetings, but and I don't know whether there's construction meeting minutes. And I'm not advising that the building committee should have those construction meeting minutes, but it would be a really good idea of whoever on the committee is at the meetings, if they exist, should be advising the building committee of what's going on. That way we wouldn't be surprised. So That's all I got to say.
Okay, anyone else?
I'm just gonna pop in here. It's Liz.
Hey, Liz.
I just think the city as a whole should have this as a policy. So regardless of regardless of whatever committee it may be, this is a policy.
Thank you.
It
And we
typically,
would be going through this.
it existed for the high school. It now exists for the library. I personally don't know, but I was going to say, yeah, Dan Pallotta knows. And maybe Jean can recall what the change order policy for the senior center was. But my guess is because Dan has one in place for the library, or we now have one in place for the library, which, by the way, we did not have in place until a few months ago, and we have, because we're now ready to begin the construction phase.
All I'm saying is a standard across the board, no matter what.
No, I agree. I'm agreeing with you, Liz. I'm just saying
Okay.
it has been in place up, and we are bringing it forward tonight because we think it's very important that it's in place for this as well.
Okay, David? You're muted. You're muted.
Just my other comment I remembered, and this kind of goes back to some of the earlier comments. These kind of aren't like true change orders in the sense of, X company was given a contract for this amount and now we have to issue a change order to them. These change orders they're in the budget. They're part of the contingency. We knew there was systems that we didn't have totally priced yet, 100% going into this, internally, the internal systems. So I think part of it is correct. The word change order could be a little bit confusing, but the change order policy, I think, is important so the committee can be updated. And with these 3 change orders, yes, they were changes, but I'm not sure they were technically change orders to a contractor. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
I mean, we definitely should have known about them earlier. There's no doubt about it, but they're not technically true change orders from the change order sense, is what I wanted to say.
Okay, Steve?
I think you're wrong. I think these are technically change orders. They're change orders to subcontractors, but they are real change orders. I guess my question is, you say we're under the, we're within the $2 million budget, and we're obviously we have some kind of contingency for the temporary fire station. How much do we have in that contingency for the temporary? How close are we getting to using it all up?
I'll answer that, Steve. As of right now, we're forecasting the pricing. I think we shared this with the committee, I think 2 meetings ago now. We're forecasting that at the completion of the work, we're going to be somewhere in the range of $1.9 million to $2 million at the end of the day. So we're very close to expending the full $2 million that was anticipated. Right now, we're hovering just under that line, but we're also not finished yet.
So, and we're out of the ground, so there's not going to be any unforeseen circumstances there. And we've gone through the building officials, so there's nothing there anymore. So it's only going to be the chief. So.
Where'd he go?
He's there.
I think he's there.
Okay, any more questions about the budget? That's what we're on, either for the temporary or the full budget. Somehow I'm on here twice, that's why I'm getting all this overload now. Know how to
Do you have a phone on? Do you have a telephone on?
No.
No, but I don't know.
I'm afraid to exit because if I do, I might not be able to get back in.
I'm afraid for you to exit.
Okay, if there's no more questions about the budget, we've arrived at the policy. Is there any further discussion on the policy?
Well, we need a motion first.
Right, is there a motion to accept the policy as sent and distributed by the mayor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay,
I,
okay, any further discussion?
Jean has a question or a comment.
Go ahead, Jane.
I guess, again, my question would be, if we vote this motion as presented, does that mean we don't get to have complete and total input on the design of the new fire station? At what point are change orders arbitrarily done by the project manager, the mayor, and the architect?
Well, no, I would say you would have, it won't change your input in the design, but let me have Dennis answer that question.
Yeah.
I think I understand the question. First of all, the committee and the city, it's your building, you're gonna have all the input you want or need on the design. So that's yours, that goes without saying.
Well, it says all changes must be reviewed and approved by chairman, designer, and OPM. It doesn't mention the building committee at all.
So,
Up to 25,000. Anything above that.
Yeah, I believe that's only for, maybe the word during construction needs to be in there or some such thing, because I don't think we're actually talking design here. I think this is once the project is bid and it's actually under construction. And maybe that just needs a little bit of clarification.
Well, that's my point, is I don't object to a change order, but only, I think it should be done after the building has gone out to bid and we've accepted the contractor, and then we institute this policy as we did with the library and as we did with the senior center. I was not part of the high school, so I don't know what policy was executed there. But this says that anything over 25,000 will also be reviewed and approved by the mayor. And again, this does not mention the building committee, and I'm uncomfortable approving this as it's written.
Okay.
Question, is not this the same exact policy as the library?
That
Yeah.
was put in place after the bids were submitted by the contractors. There is a now any changes that are made incur a
Wow.
cost. Before,
Well, actually, that would be, you can't really make that statement because there's going to be multiple contracts that get sent out in different aspects of the building. So you can't just wait till all the contracts are done and do a policy. So everything's sent out to bid. So
is what we did with the library is after all the contracts have been accepted, we know what it's going to cost, then we made the change order policy. That's what I'm trying to say is, as this is written, it says all changes must be reviewed and approved by the chairman, designer, and OPM. And if it's over $25,000, the mayor gets involved.
I will disagree with that because there's more than one contract that's going to go out to bid.
Okay.
There's going to be construction and there's going to be perhaps furnishings. There's going to be different things that go out to bid.
Yes, Chief.
So can I just get a point of clarification on this? So my understanding is that design and bids are going to go through the building committee, and that change orders come after the design and the bids come. So it's not like a design is a change order or a change to a design is even possible under this. That in fact, when a change order comes in is after we've already issued the bids and they're awarded. And once they're awarded, if you make a change on top of that, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about anybody having the ability to alter or change a design or anything outside of the committee. Am I wrong in that statement, or am I correct?
But
You
that
are not
is-
wrong.
But that's not what this says that we're voting on.
I don't mean to disagree, but I interpret it differently. I believe that is exactly what.
Could I interject a little bit here? But
Go ahead, Mayor.
the only thing that makes this different from the library is the fact that we are doing a temporary station right now. And so therefore that has meant that we have the change orders that were discussed tonight. We may have others in the next couple of weeks, as as was just pointed out. Let's hope not, because we're entering the home stretch here, but you can never say that it won't happen. This makes it different. Those contracts have gone out. They have been awarded. The designs are what they are. We voted on those quite some time ago. So in that respect, it isn't terribly different. They just happen to have occurred in prior to us bringing forth the change order policy. News, if it helps, and I think it probably does, I'm certainly willing to discuss it. But if it helps, I think Dennis's comment is instructive and could be incorporated by a friendly amendment, and that would be all changes must be reviewed and approved by chairman, designer, and OPM during construction. And you could add that same explanation in the sentence that regards the $25,000. And that way it's clear that we are not talking about changing a design. I'm not sure that, I mean, there's possible things that could occur in the design phase that might cause a change order in the design. But I'd leave that to to the designer to say whether that's historically correct or not. But I think if we added that during construction, hopefully that would help people on the committee understand that what we're talking about is not the design phase. The design phase will go forward very similarly in my mind, and I will make sure that it does happen, as did the library, which happened many months ago. So we will have ample opportunity as a committee to have input into the design. And I know that Pacheco Ross is very familiar with that and understands that that's the process, as he said.
Okay, is there a motion to amend the motion and add the mayor's statement?
Well, I would like to say if we do that, then it should probably say any proposed change order 20 over 25, the second sentence of that paragraph. Any proposed change order over $25,000 during construction shall be also reviewed and approved by the mayor. Certainly assure you that if I had any question about something over $25,000 that I thought the committee ought to know about, there's nothing that precludes us from having a special meeting if it were necessary. I don't anticipate that it would be necessary, but if I had any doubt, I certainly would want the committee to have an opportunity to weigh in on it. So that's my friendly amendment. Yes, I move that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on the new improved motion?
Can you state what the motion is?
Want me to read it?
Sure.
Oh, the motion? The friendly amendment is to change the policy, and I could certainly read that full policy after I state this, with the intended correction. Is to change the policy, the second paragraph of the policy, to add the words during construction after the word OPM, period. Then it would be during construction, period. And then in the second sentence, it would be any proposed change order over $25,000 during construction, or that could be the beginning, it doesn't matter to me, shall be also reviewed and approved by the mayor. Now, you want me to read the whole thing with that in there? I'm happy to do it. I can read fast. In an effort to prevent delay, claims associated with contract dictated timing, the following policy shall be in effect for the library. I'm sorry, for the got library on the brain, for the temporary and permanent fire station project. All changes must be reviewed and approved by chairman, designer, and OPM during construction. All changes will, during construction, all changes will start as a PCO or proposed change order. I'm sorry, I said second sentence, it's the third sentence. Any proposed change order over 25,000 during construction shall be also reviewed and approved by the mayor. Upon a collection of PCOs reviewed and approved by the chairman, designer, and OPM, a formal legal change to the contract shall be prepared for the mayor's signature as chief executive officer. Upon the signature of the mayor, designer, contractor, and OPM on the legal change order, it shall be the responsibility to send said legal change order to the finance director and procurement agent. The OPM shall at all times have a PCO log and shall update the mayor, building committee, finance director, and procurement agent at their request. The OPM shall track all spending and keep a budget and shall reconcile with the finance director no less than quarterly.
So there's the motion. Is there any further discussion? Motion. Okay, believe we're ready for a vote. Right.
Butch,
Yes.
question. The vote is to amend the policy right now. It's not to approve the policy, correct?
Gotta find my list here. Okay, David Singer, who's not here. Butch Hawkins votes yes. The mayor?
Yes.
Okay, Chief Strand?
Yes.
Liz Gilman?
Yes.
David? Miratello?
Yes.
Okay, Steve Draculich?
Yes.
Okay, Gene Wall?
Yes.
Amy McMahon?
Yes.
I believe that's it. Okay, the motion passes to change. Revise the motion. Okay, now is there a motion to accept the new policy motion?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay. Okay, Mayor?
Yes.
Butch, yes. Chief Strand?
Yes.
Liz Gilman?
Yes.
David Mascaratello?
Yes.
Steve Draculich?
Yes.
Gene Wall?
Yes.
And Amy McMahon.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimous. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I know it was maybe a confusing issue at this time. I would speak more, but I'm being double talked here, so I think that concludes the meeting. Unless anyone else wants to say anything about the budget stuff.
Do you want a,
Sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
I don't, I'll let Bob speak. I just was saying, if you want an update on Maine and Coombs, I'm happy to provide it. There's not a lot of information, but I'm happy to provide.
I would just say it's not on the agenda, and I would wait for a full
Oh,
committee meeting.
okay.
Yes, Chief.
No, I was just, if it was okay to do so, I would just wanted to take a moment and say I apologize for being late. We had multiple calls going on, and just say that we are in the process of setting a moving schedule of some of our equipment at the firehouse, and can't wait to share it with you all very soon. So, looking forward to moving into some new space pretty soon. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make it.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you very much, everybody.
See you on the flip side, Neil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have fun, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
The meeting doubly. Weird.